Hi everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming super full moon in Scorpio taking place on the 7th of May 2020, and also I would like to say a few words about the shift of the nodal axis leaving Cancer and Capricorn and entering Gemini and Sagittarius on the 5th of May 2020. Now both of these astrological phenomenon are very important. They represent significant energy shifts, but out both of them, the long-term one is definitely the nodes of the moon. So we have to emphasize a little bit on their symbolism and what it represents. So basically, the nodes of the moon represent our karmic path, where the north node represents where we have to advance, what we have to accomplish, what we have to achieve. It represents basically the future and everything that we have to do in order to step into that future. And usually, where the North Node is, represents opportunities, it represents progress, and it represents the emphasis where all of us, both individually and collectively, are investing our focus, are investing our energy in order to accomplish that progress. Now, the South Node represents the past, it represents past karma, it represents our past actions, so we can look at it at what we have to do differently, where we can apply the wisdom and experiences of the past to overcome challenges, to close our karmic path, the karmic pattern, so to speak, not to repeat the same mistakes. And by doing this, by navigating with wisdom, with diligence, by applying our past life experiences, we can also make significant progress and innovation. Now, in the present moment, the nodes of the moon are still in Cancer Capricorn axis, and their presence here was a very important energy shift when at the moment when it took place, and basically it changed so much of external reality, because what does the North Node represent in the sign of Cancer? Well, it represents our culture, it represents our local community, it represents our family and our familiar connections, it represents our ancestral DNA. It can also represent our place in the world, where we focus upon where our soul feels at home rather than our given conditions. So as soon as the North Node touched Cancer, all of this started to manifest, especially the last part of 2018 and all of 2019, where people all over the planet, so to speak, felt a very powerful inner call either to return to their culture of origin, to their place of birth, to revisit their families, to resolve all their issues which source from their family, from the past. So there were very powerful moments of forgiveness, when people just closed all doors to the past, where they didn't allow anything that took place in the past to bind them down. And this leads to forgiveness. This leads to, fixing all of your relationships, building bridges which were destroyed long ago. It means embracing, having the power to embrace your culture of origin, your place of birth, your local community, all those people who are sometimes just passively present. We could appreciate all those people that much more. And at the same time, there was like a tendency where a lot of people did like genetic testing so that they can figure out from which cultures their genetic pool basically originates from. So a lot of people symbolically returned to their ancestors, discovered their ancestors, discovered a part of themselves which basically is hidden most of the times, and it was only revealed due to scientific progress. Now, on the world stage, the North Node in Cancer manifested in a very different way, where everyone appreciated their own culture that much more. So we could see this manifest as Brexit, for example. We could manifest this as borders being closed, as legislation, rules and regulations which govern migration and visas and all of this was much more tighter, because people basically try to protect their own cultures from everything that could pollute it, because they wanted to preserve the traditions, their like spiritual, cultural, intellectual, whatever heritages that they got from their ancestors. And this might not have been something based on hatred and intolerance, but rather there isn't any other way you could protect your culture from being as pure as possible. So this is what had to be done. Now the South Node in Capricorn, on the other hand, was very obvious. Starting from the end of 2018, all of 2019, a lot of people were preoccupied with their careers, career choices, studies, their masteries, their professional lives. They wanted to find, communities, organizations maybe where they could fit in, where their work could be that much appreciated, where they can use their skills and talents and everything that they learn to master in a very practical way. But also the emotional part is equally important, because they wanted to feel appreciated. They wanted to feel like their work and their efforts, their time is actually very meaningful. And on the other hand, on the world stage, well, it manifested as this major political, economic, legal turmoils, conflicts, clashes, like all the protests, the Beijing protests, for example. So this was basically humanity's past karma in regards to centralized power, and of course it had to reveal the flaws, the weaknesses, the corruption, the unfairness, the injustice present there. So giving us the chance that we can change it, because as I said earlier, like the South Node needs our wisdom and needs us not to repeat the mistakes of the past. So of course everything had to come to the surface. And then in January and February, I think, Mars touched this South Node and it activated it. So of course we had very powerful manifestations like the coronavirus and the economic collapse being extremely obvious and imminent, unavoidable. This is what's gonna happen, and no one can actually do anything about it, because this is the karmic purge, so to speak. But now all of this is changing, where the North Node is moving into the sign of Gemini, where it is exalted. Its symbolism is greatly amplified. So this is really good news, because Gemini represents a mutable air sign, so it's freedom above all else. Yes, it is the mind, it is communication, it is practicality, it is lightheartedness, it is everything that has to do with the symbolism of Gemini, but the energy itself is always free. It is like a nonconformist air sign, just like Aquarius, just like Libra, but in its own special way. So, of course, in the very, very immediate future, this is a good news, because the restrictive measures have to be lifted, because the karmic energy of Gemini demands this. So it is not really an option. And since on the 11th of May, Saturn goes retrograde, that means the relaxation of all the rules, of all the restrictions, of the social distancing. So this is like a very powerful air energy combination. But for the more distant future, equally a powerful and significant energy shift, because it represents major, massive progress, especially intellectually, where like almost everyone on the planet at the same time, because everyone has Gemini in their charts, so they feel an inner calling to empower their minds. They just know that power is in their mental spheres, their intellect, their rationality, their sense of logic, their learning skills, the communication abilities, interhuman connections, online technology. All of this has to do with the sign of Gemini. So one of the big effects that the North Node traversing through Gemini is definitely going to have is a major improvement and upgrade, a big revolutionization of our education systems, the way we learn, the way we go about problems, our relations with one another. This could be official relations, this could be friendships, this could be one-on-one alliances, because the sign of Gemini is dual after all. And all of this leads us to progress, because if our minds are cleaner, purer, more disciplined, more serving our highest good and the highest good of the collective, if we do not choose ignorance as a defense mechanism, if we become aware of everything that is important, but we know how to manage that awareness, we know how not to allow it to turn into frustration, stress, and the dark side of Gemini is basically the obsessive fear of missing out. Now, if we somehow manage to control this, to self-discipline it, not to allow our fears to get in the way, not to allow our frightened of missing out, of not being in touch with, the flow of the world, the flow of information, the modernization of everything. So this is like a subconscious fear that is the biggest weakness of Gemini, because it always wants to be connected. It always wants to know everything. It wants to be aware of everything important, even if it doesn't have anything to do with its own personal life or its sphere of awareness. It still wants to be connected to the global. It wants to be connected to the collective. So the North Node here is helping us achieve that in a very, very healthy way, and not in a negative way where it's an obsession, where it's irresistible, and not becoming connected is like a big drama. So this is why it is so very important, and this is going to be the main theme in the next 18 months of our lives. Regardless of which perspective we look at it, since it's also exalted here, extra powerful, this is gonna be a big, big progress. This is gonna allow us to find solutions through the power of our minds to everything. Now, why would you think that the North Node is so comfortable in Gemini? Well, think about it. Without the blessing of intellect, all of us, one way or another, be just animals. Yes, emotional intelligence is so very important, morality is infinitely important, but without the mind, we just can't achieve progress. We can't be more than our own conditioning. We cannot, for example, reach the stars. We cannot land on the moon. We cannot explore Mars. We cannot explore the cosmos. We wouldn't have computers. So yes, everything is extremely important. The emotion, the morality, the spirituality, the practicality, the psychology, but our mental spheres are still our greatest power, both as individuals, both as a species. It doesn't matter how we look at it. Our intellects and our learning abilities, our mental adaptability are our biggest power, and every time the North Node returns here, well, we are being greatly empowered, and it leads us to a quantum leap. And this quantum leap is not just the North Node in Gemini, but there's also so many other celestial conversations which aid it, which catalyze it. For example, the great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter on the 21st of December 2020 at 0 degrees of Aquarius, a fellow air sign. And this opens up a new paradigm for us, a new worldview. So basically we're stepping into a future where the intellect is everything, and if the intellect is greatly empowered by the North Node as well, for a long time, 18 months, well then that is a huge potential, a huge window of opportunity to quantum leap into wherever our hearts are guiding us. Because yes, the mind is the way, but the guiding light is still the heart. It is still the intelligence of our heart space, which is totally different than Aquarius and Gemini and all of that. And this is how the South Node in Sagittarius comes into play, because Sagittarius is the highest octave of our knowledge, our greatest philosophies, air travel, space travel, long distance travel, international law, international communication and connections, our faith and religion. So very many symbols have to do with Sagittarius. So we have to apply all of our knowledge. This is where the knowledge of the ancients, like ancient philosophies, for example Socrates, for example Ptolemy, give us the wisdom of morality, give us the wisdom of what healthy faith is, so that we can embody wisdom and diligence. With that wisdom, we have to know how to navigate in order to embody the healthiest expression of our faith, our spirituality, of the highest philosophies. Because otherwise, let's take a look at the year 2003 when the South Node was in Sagittarius. A lot of terrorist activities. Air travel had to have totally new set of rules and regulations, much stricter, much tighter. The controlling of the liquids and the potential explosives and all of that. And all of this is mostly due to religion and philosophy, basically, because fanaticism, intolerance, rigid, unhealthy faith devastated our lives. It devastated our normality. It devastated our sense of security. So we already have a great amount of wisdom to know when to stop unhealthy faith, when to stop extreme gestures, when our ideologies and our philosophies have to be embodied, because if we cannot embody it perfectly, well, that means there's something wrong with it. And this is the connection of Gemini and Sagittarius, where they oppose each other. So there has to be a balance between, the practicality and the power of the mind, but also morality, because the two have to be in a very, very healthy relationship with one another. Because if not, extremism, and both Gemini has extreme expressions, the duality of it, the both sides of the spectrum, where Gemini is quite comfortable in the being in the extremes. It doesn't actually need to be in the middle ground, while Sagittarius tends to take everything to extremes, because its ruling planet is Jupiter, the planet of expansion. So of course Sagittarius likes to expand and live everything in a very expanded, in a very extreme way. But this is where our past wisdom comes as a guiding light. So what can we expect? We can expect a major evolution in legislation regarding air travel, regarding international laws and rules, regarding our legal systems, regarding international connections, international trade maybe, regarding healthy faith, as in everyone will have the liberty to find their own faith and interpret the universe and reality their own unique ways, as long as there's nothing violent and there's nothing immoral about it, as long as it won't disturb the expression of that North Node in Gemini, which is trying to embody the healthy philosophies, but also the practicality of science and communications and interhuman connections, so that we can achieve a massive progress for everyone. We can also expect a big boost in space travel, space exploration, astronomy, certain sciences like cosmology and quantum physics, because those are very Sagittarian type sciences, not as much Aquarian type sciences. And we can also expect a massive decline of the support mainstream religions are going to receive from people, because that North Node in Gemini is rejecting rigid dogmas. It is rejecting rules and regulation, even if they are just purely moral, which have a level of absurdity to it, which do not reflect the present moment. Because let's not forget that that great conjunction happens in Aquarius, so the future, and everyone kind of knows that the future has no place for rigid, absurd, illogical, not very rational beliefs. Like non-linear logic is perfectly fine and it is okay, and that is the basis of philosophy, isn't it? But if that non-linear logic is not authentic, It is not from the present era, so to speak. It's from an absurd and obscure past, and it is not, and it doesn't have any relevance in the present moment. Well, people are gonna reject it, and simply rejecting it, the mainstream religions are gonna lose a lot of ground and a lot of support and a lot of importance. And since also in December 2020 we have a solar eclipse in the sign of Sagittarius, which represents a fantastic and really powerful, significant new beginning, well, that is what's gonna take its place. Maybe the birth of new religious movements, the birth of new religious currents, the birth of new type of spirituality which the world has never ever seen before. And on top of this, Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius, the planet of the future, revolutionizing Taurus, our value systems, is also going to add a lot of this to this. And in the next 6 years, there gonna come a very important moment where Uranus in Taurus, traversing the sign of Taurus, as in, revolutionizing our value systems, is going to be meeting the asteroid Sedna. And Sedna is basically humanity's awakening, awakened consciousness, expanded consciousness, spiritual escalation. So when Uranus is going to be meeting Sedna, it's going to be a very powerful energy boost, which is not only going to reconfigure, maybe totally, maybe in absolutely mysterious ways, the Schumann resonance, the electromagnetic resonance of the Earth, and who knows what kind of miraculous effect that is going to have on our nervous systems. So all of this is basically guiding us, pushing us, somewhat forcing us, that Uranus, to step into our futures and to embrace the future and close doors to the past. And with that South Node in Sagittarius, especially morally, especially regarding our faith. And this also works together with Jupiter retrograde season in the sign of Capricorn, which is definitely going to represent a challenge of faith, a crisis that has to do with our faiths. But this is a fantastic opportunity because healthy faith questions itself. So we are just trying to dig even deeper to express and find our inner truth, and after we align with it, well, then we already have a healthy faith, and then we already have the energies, the experience, the solid inner truth that we need to navigate through that South Node in Sagittarius. Now finally, let's emphasize the star of next week's astrological show, which is none other than the super full moon in the sign of Scorpio. Now this full moon is going to be really, really powerful. I know that I said that about the previous full moons and the new moons as well, but there's a huge difference between this full moon and all of the other full moons, because this one is really, really magical. It is deeply spiritual, it is paranormal, and this full moon is deeply psychological, much more than the other ones. Now, why is this full moon so magical? Well, on one hand, it is taking place in the sign of Scorpio, and the sign of Scorpio has everything to do with secret, it has everything to do with the occult, with spirituality, the arcane powers of our souls, of our subconscious, our dreams, our most hidden and secret desires, our relations with other people, especially when those relations have to do with something that we share or we have in common. And basically, it is the sign most associated to secrets, conspiracies, and controversial information. It has much to do with the sign of Scorpio. But if this wasn't enough on its own, well, the moon in the sign of Scorpio is going to be forming very powerful mystical aspects with other mystical power players. And here I'm talking about a trine it forms with Neptune from its home sign of Pisces, which is a deep spiritual energy, which is basically the source itself. the divine itself. And a trine is a blessing. A trine is a celestial conversation of supreme harmony. So we are definitely going to be blessed. The universe, the divine, and its most mysterious expression, may it manifest inside of us or outside, it doesn't really matter, because it will definitely have our backs. And the guidance, may it be synchronicity, may it be just epiphany, may it come through our dreams, it doesn't matter, it's going to be really powerful. Much so powerful that we don't even have to, have that basic fear that we're gonna miss it, that we're gonna miss out, that we won't pay enough attention, because this is where it's gonna be really obvious. And at the same time, Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio, the planet which has much to do with the occult, with secrets, being also retrograde, so it turns inwards, it amplifies our inner powers, especially our supernatural powers. The hand of faith is sextiling the moon. So this is the truth seeker's aspect. A sextile is like an inspiration, like a guidance, needs action, choice, or a decision, some move from our behalf in order to turn into a powerful blessing. So Pluto is about the truth, it is about what is truly there, and since Scorpio is a psychological energy, it is going to expose our psyches, it is going to expose what is hidden deep within us. And this is absolutely amazing, because Neptune represents the source, the power of the source, that we are being empowered, and we can use that power, as in Pluto retrograde, in order to dig as deep as we would like, as deep as even past lives, past existences, and come to the resurface with answers, with clarity, with our truth embodied much more. Now, at the same time, as you know, a full moon is an opposition of the sun and the moon, so the sun in Taurus is also very, very close to Mercury. So Mercury is the planet of the mind, and when it's so close to the sun, the mind is illuminated. And whatever that powerful Neptune and Pluto is going to be doing to us, it is that more obvious. It reaches our awareness, it reaches our mind, the logic and rationality of our mind, that much quicker. So this isn't like being wrapped up in a bubble of mystery where we're just confused as ever. No. This is like really straightforward information, revelation, discovery, investigation, maybe, because Mercury does that, especially when it has much to do with the ruler of Scorpio, Pluto. So each and every time when Mercury forms a positive aspect with Pluto, now that can be used as an investigative energy, that can be used to get to the bottom of things, that can be used to gather very relevant and true information. So the Sun and Mercury are being sextiled by Neptune, so once again the power of faith, dreams, imagination, our inner worlds, entrined by Pluto. So once again the truth, the hand of faith, the power that we have over ourselves, the power of our minds, the power of our logics, the light of our mental spheres, having solutions, creating solutions to every single problem that we might be having. And here we're talking about the earth sign of Taurus, so definitely it has to manifest physically. So the information that we receive, the clarity we receive, the secrets that we uncover or are being revealed to us are definitely going to influence our material lives, because the axis of Taurus and Scorpio has of course much to do with finances, with money, with our values, with what we share with others, with what we receive from others, with debt, with our relations to banks and institutions, like financial organizations, so to speak. So this can be a brilliant energy financially, regarding your personal finances, with your future goals and plans financially, materially, your financial relations with others, may it be a person, may it be like an organization, may it have to do with your job, may it have to do with contracts, taking a loan, making an investment. This energy offers you all the clarity that you need personally in a very practical manner. And this is where Pluto retrograde is your own personal power. So if you wish to accomplish something, well, you're gonna have all the information and maybe all the divine support that you need. Now, from a spiritual perspective, this energy is fantastic, is ideal for every spiritual preoccupation that you could think of. Now, if there's a big spiritual experiment or a meditation or a ritual or a practice or just inner work or getting to the bottom of things psychologically, maybe going back to into your past, maybe exploring your inner world, maybe getting to the root of traumas, what events caused them, who are honest people in your lives or who are toxic, who are dishonest, who are playing you, who are deceiving you. And of course, if you are the toxic person, because sometimes we don't even know that we affect other people very negatively, that can also be revealed. And this gives you a perfect opportunity to sort out your life from a spiritual and also psychological perspective, because this is clarity, this is big revelation, this is the light of the moon shining upon the hidden and arcane layers of your consciousness, on your psyche, so to speak. So this is a very beautiful energy for every type of artistic, spiritual, metaphysical, occult, paranormal, supernatural preoccupation. May it be you, if you want to practice something, you want to start practicing something, you hear that inner call, that call beyond the veil to get started. It is an absolutely perfect energy for psychoanalysis, to getting to the bottom of your own problems, inner blockages, traumas, unhealthy patterns, unhealthy subconscious programmings, maybe fears and insecurities you might have received from the past, from education, from other people, from toxic partners. May it be romantic or may it be business partners or people who just use you. May it be your own mistakes, may it be your own bad choices, may it be all the things that you didn't do right in your life. So this is a really powerful revelatory energy where you can get to the bottom of everything. And of course, it also gives you the opportunity, that very powerful Pluto aspect, to transform, to change, to alchemize everything, to heal your wounds, to find forgiveness, to purge out the toxicity of others, to purge out the toxicity of your own shadow self, to purge out misaligned beliefs, to purge out bad patterns, psychological programmings. And most importantly, we are being supported by the divine, because the moon receives that trine from Neptune. Of course, the moon is debilitated. It is in fall in the sign of Scorpio, but that is not necessarily a bad thing, because it is receptive to the truth, to investigations, to discoveries, digging in deep that much more. So this is actually a celestial blessing, even though for some people it can feel rather heavy, it can be like a total shock, like unexpectedly. But as I said, Mercury also receives a beautiful sextile and the trine from Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio, so we are being supported to process it, as long as we don't allow that Taurian rigidity to get in our way. But we also need that Taurian rigidity to accept the truth, to get that sense of realism, to be grounded. So we have to use these energies in a very balanced way, and that's why that sextile is not a free blessing. It depends on us. We have all the support, we have all the maybe good fortune that we need, so that the clarity just comes to us and reaches us in the most unexpected and surprising ways. But even with that, it still depends on us how we use that information and if we actually have the guts to face the truth and work with it. Now, on the world stage, this energy definitely represents big exposures of secrets, of foul play, of manipulation, of lies and deceptions, of corruption. It is basically bringing to the surface everything that was hidden from us. And this isn't like the Piscean type of not knowing where we just weren't aware or we were a little bit ignorant. But this is where foul play, where all of these were kept secret from us intentionally. So it might not have to do with our own ignorance, it might have to do with foul play, and that's why this full moon, this very powerful super full moon, where the moon is that much closer to the earth, can just descend upon all our lives and reveal to us everything that we need to be aware of in order to find balance both individually and collectively. So on the world stage, this is gonna expose big secrets, but it's not an easy energy, because maybe some things that are gonna be exposed are so hard to believe that it's gonna send us more into confusion immediately after, and we'll need time to process it, to make up our minds. And this is why that ongoing square between Neptune and Venus is a big obstacle and a big challenge, because we're confused as it is. And since Venus is in the sign of Gemini and Neptune in the sign of Pisces, this square, yes, it has nothing to do personally with the moon and the sun right now, but it still represents like bad intent, deception, lies, fraudulent activities, especially online on the internet, cybernetic warfare, where they just deceive and lie and feed into us false information, or they confuse us intentionally. So all throughout this time, until that Venus and Neptune square lasts, we need to be really careful, because we might be conned, we might be victims of fraudulent activities, we might be victims of lies, deception, and manipulation, where certain people just target the naive on the internet. But at the same time, this can also be playing out on the world stage, where secret groups and, cyber terrorists or whatever are gonna be battling authorities, and that can leave us, the rest of us who are not actually part of this, to be collateral victims, and will just be confused. That's why this powerful Scorpio super full moon is so very important. At the same time, this moon is also going to hold a minor astrological aspect called the quincunx with Venus from the sign of Gemini. So this is a warning sign to be extra careful, because not everything is what it seems. Maybe certain things are gonna appeal to our emotions, to everything that we love, to our attractions, but we should be careful, because the quincunx is a surprise, but there's no guarantee if it's a delightful surprise or if it's a horrible shock or an awkward moment. So let us be extremely aware and careful all throughout next week of what we do and what communication we receive, especially if it's too good to be true. So in conclusion, this super full moon in the sign of Scorpio is going to be really powerful financially, as in giving us the clarity to sort out our financial problems and our financial situation. And it's a complementary energy to that revolutionization of our value systems, global finances, and the global economy, so to speak, where let's not forget that Jupiter and Pluto are still conjunct in the sign of Capricorn. So this is gonna represent one of the peaks of that energy, because the moon illuminates all the secrets. So Pluto in itself in the sign of Capricorn is exposing secrets, but it's exposing maybe in a very indirect manner, where right now we need the light of the moon to see the big picture, to see whatever that Pluto was telling us all along, ever since the 12th of January 2020. So this is a very powerful moment in time to have that revelation, to become aware of what transcended, what transpired on the world stage starting from 12th of January. On the other hand, personally, from a psychological perspective, this is a beautiful energy to make progress, to heal the past, to cleanse yourself, to, eliminate bad patterns, to eliminate bad habits, to quit addictions, to break free from toxic relationship, to forgive others, or simply to eliminate the importance of people who are no longer physically present in your life from your soul, from your heart. It's like an emotional cleansing, and that Venus with Neptune, the square, is a complementary energy to this. Just that it's really hard and for some people even painful. But for spiritualists, for those who practice anything, even if it's just religious practices, this is gonna be a fantastic aspect when you can simply own your spiritual power. You can own your magical power and do whatever you want with it, because Neptune in the sign of Pisces, what is it telling us? Well, that our fantasies and dreams can all of a sudden become reality, because that is how we create. That is how magic works, isn't it? And all the zombie movies and the Big Brother over the past 10 years, that we emphasized on those, even if they're just artistic expressions and fantasies, well, look at what they created. Look at the similarity between our present situation, symbolically, of course, but still, the similarity and the interconnections cannot be ignored. We created this basically with our fantasies. So we can use the same creative energy, the power of the source that Neptune, the power of art, the power of divine beauty, the power to transfigure reality according to our inner world. Now we can use that to accomplish anything. But of course, we are invited to do the right thing. We are invited to use our dignity, diligence, and to respect the universal principles, for example, harm none. That is the basic requirement. As long as we uphold the divine law, well, there's no limit to what we can accomplish with this power. And you don't have to be like a very experienced spiritualist. All you need to do is be a dreamer, to have faith, to embrace the beauty of your soul, and there you go. It's also a fantastic energy to connect to the spirit world, to call upon spirit, to call upon divine guidance, to connect to the divine mind and the divine intelligence. It is a really, really good aspect for like divination, doing tarot, even starting to learn astrology. Why not? Your intuition, your dreams can just haywire. They can just run out of control, but in the most positive way possible, because this is a blessing, this is a trine. So Neptune can just fill us with its very, very best expression. It can make our intuitive senses as sharp as it could possibly be. And this is why the energy is so revelatory, because it also speaks with Mercury. So not only are we gonna, process the information logically, but it will also appeal to our intuitive senses. And when something deeply resonates, when every fiber of your being is telling you that this is the truth, well then, what more could we ask? And also, because of the moon, speaks both to Neptune and Pluto, and Pluto is the ruler, the governor of Scorpio. This can represent a spike in paranormal activities, paranormal manifestations, everything that has to do with the supernatural element of reality. So if you are into investigations and all of this, this is a really, really good aspect. Chances are, if you go on experiment or go on investigations and just dig deep, you're gonna be successful, and the universe is going to show you secrets, mysteries, and you might just see the supernatural play out before your very eyes. And of course, with the North Node already being in Gemini, we're going to be that much more clever, that much more receptive to information. It can just empower our mathematical minds. And of course, this doesn't mean that you need to know math in depth, it's just the mathematical functions of your mind, which is a very powerful tool already to process, to reflect, to contemplate in a very logical, in a very rational manner. So the truth is being promoted from each and every angle, at least astrologically speaking. And then, of course, there's a trine between Mars and Venus, which is also a blessing of intellect, because both of them speak from air signs. So the intellectual element, the air, is greatly, greatly amplified. It is emphasized by the heavens, so to speak. So the Scorpio full moon complements that with the mysterious side, with the psychological side, with the intuitive side. So everything is very harmonious in order to expose truth, may it be personal, may it have to do with your personal life, but most importantly, on the world stage. So this is going to be a really important pivotal moment for all of us collectively regarding the truth, regarding what's truly going on, giving us the opportunity to make up our mind and decide for ourselves what we want to believe and what our truth ultimately is. And of course, later on, that is going to be the basis of all the actions and decisions that we take. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope you're gonna enjoy and make the best of this very magical and powerful full moon. May the universe and that very powerful and beautiful Neptune guide you, inspire you, motivate you in the most miraculous of ways. Thank you so much again, and bye for now.